I went and helped. There's a Hutterite colony just up the hill here, across the river. And I don't know if you know what a Hutterite colony is or not, but it's a community. They're German. They're Christian based. They live in the community, and they share their meals. And it's a very interesting society. Anyway, Joe, he runs the dairy and the cow herd, and he asked me if I'd come help him gather some heifers off the river, and then move them a couple of miles back down to the colony. And so I did. It was fun, and rode my little Ruth horse, and it was real nice to gather. And he was fun. He's riding a 20-year-old old horse, and he just a good hand, you know. He just gets her done. Had a nice dog. But we were going along there, and then he had a boy driving a pickup and opening gates and stuff in the trailer, and young man, and then he switched, and he'd only been on a horse one time before, so he rode along with me, and we trailed him up. And then there's a real tough bridge. Everybody has a hard time getting their cattle across the bridge. I brought a bunch of bucking bull cows across. Everybody told me I couldn't do it several years ago, and they came across pretty good. So anyway, we had a little 5-minute hold up, and they went across the bridge pretty nice. So that was fun. But while I was riding along there, I got to thinking about the colony lifestyle, and you know, the kids, they are there till they go to school to the 8th grade, and they worked and they help. And I think the colony, when it gets around 250 people, they split and they recolonize. They put a new colony somewhere. And Joe told me this is he was born in White Sulphur, Montana, and then that colony split and they came up to here. And his father was born in Canada, and that colony had split and came to White Sulphur. So they just keep moving and growing and going, and you know, it's quite a lifestyle, looks like to me. You don't get to make many decisions in your life, and you have a certain job and you go to school till the 8th grade, and then you decide what you're going to do, and the elders kind of make all the decisions. And I don't think you have a lot of money. I don't know how that all works, but I got to thinking riding up through there about quality life, and I was wondering if their quality life was good or bad or better or not. And then I got to thinking about right here at home. I talked last week about the Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce Indians. You know, they were here coming through, going to Canada, trying to flee, get out of the United States, not have to go to a reservation. And then all around here, there's rims, and there's Indian pictographs all over the place, and there's a lot of Native American activity here. I go to head smashed in buffalo jump whenever I'm up through Canada, up above. It's below, just north of Lethbridge or a ways. It's a great interpretive center, and here, Red. And I go there, and you know, they would run those buffalo off the cliff, and they would run a bunch of them off there, and then the women and kids and everybody, they went to work preparing and doing all the stuff. It was a lot of work. And when that all changed is when the horse came. When the horse came, their life, the Native Americans' life, I think, really improved, because then they could just kill 1 or 2 buffalo and not have the big workload and save stuff. And so the horse really changed the Native American in the Americas here, their lifestyle. And I think that's when the population got a lot bigger, because the women weren't so tired, and they could have more children. And so, but I wonder about that quality of life then, and then you know, the Hutterites or people in modern society. I just wonder what the best quality of life is. And so I thought about that quite a little bit this week, and I think about, well, I'm going to Yuma, Arizona next week, taking my mother down south, and we'll stop in Twin Falls, Idaho, and visit my grandmother Alice Pate, and she's on my dad's side, and she's had a tough life. She's in a rest home there, and she has a little bit of dementia, but she has worked hard all her life, and she grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, during the Depression, and she told me she knew what it was to be hungry, and she actually got weak and sick and couldn't go to school for a while because she didn't have enough to eat. And they used to go on Sundays. They'd go listen to preachers, and if you listen to a sermon, you got a loaf of bread. And they would go. There's four sides of the town square where they had those preachers. They could get 4 loaves of bread in a day, and that's what they did on Sundays. So, man, it must have been a tough life. And I was just looking at some pictures of a trip my dad and I took down to Marfa, Texas area where they lived, and she lived in some pretty tough places. And my grandfather always worked on ranches or feedlots, and my grandmother, I remember when I was a kid, we used to love to go to the feedlot in Roberts, Idaho, Golden Valley Pack, and my grandfather run the cow side of that yard, and they lived right on the feedlot, and they had lived in a little bitty trailer, little Airstream type deal, and it was right next to the horse barns, and I mean the flies were that thick on and I just loved it as a kid, but I just can't imagine my grandmother, how much she lived in a little bitty house and had lots of people around and cooking for everybody and working outside. And now so we're going to stop at this rest home, and then through life they did better and better, but my grandfather always worked in tough jobs, and she always worked nights and worked in cafes, and she was a tough hard worker and never complained. She'd get mad once in a while and straighten everybody out, but she always saw the good things in life, and I really enjoyed that. So when I go visit her at the rest home, she can't remember, she doesn't really know where things are right now. Like she'll say, where am I at? And but she's real happy. She says, they really treat me nice here. They're just so nice, and the food is good, and everything's good. And then I'll ask her questions about the past, and she remembers everything just like that, and she never complains. And I just think it's incredible how tough that lady is and how much she's enjoyed a tough life, but always found the good in it. And that's an attitude that I think a lot of pioneer women had. And, I think if some of the men and women of today had to live some of the things that our grandparents had to live in the past, they would not, if they had to go back to that, with all the whining and complaining and all the things that we think we deserve today, it just seems like it'd be pretty tough to go back to that. But my grandmother survived it just fine, and she's a happy woman. So then we'll go on to Yuma, and my father lives there, and his wife, and they live there full time because of her health. She can't come north because of her lungs, smoking, and she got COPD, and she quit a long time ago, but her lungs never recovered. Most people's lungs recovered, but hers didn't, and they've just gotten worse. And so they now live in Yuma. But the thing I've learned about going to Yuma and seeing all the retired people in the last 10 years or so that I've been going, or maybe more than that with my mother, is what you do in your life creates what you end up when you go to Yuma or retire or whatever. And I believe good health is number one. Then the ability to enjoy life for what you got and the people around you. And then your finances, I think, are number three. I see lots of folks down there that don't have any money and they're struggling, but they're just as happy as the people that have saved and done well and have the $500,000 motor home, or some people might have a $700 trailer. And I don't see a lot of difference in the monetary as long as they're healthy and get along with people, and because down there that's the whole deal, is you're just dealing with people in warm weather. So those are things that you should look forward to going along, so when you get farther down the road, you'll have a good quality of life. But as far as thinking about quality of life of people I've seen, like I really don't know the Hutterites. I'm sure they have their challenges and not whatever. They don't have a lot of worries in life. They get everything they need and probably want some things, but who doesn't? So I think if you fit that lifestyle, you're good. And then I look at people I've known through my life and worked for, and just because you have money, some of the most miserable people I've worked for in my life have had a lot of money or acted like they had a lot of money. And then some of the most fun people and they're real appreciative people are just ranchers that are trying to make it and survive and don't have a lot of money, but they got plenty to eat and they enjoy their work and they get along with people. And I think that's the big key right there is how well you fit into your situation. Like I've been here all week, and I went to Harlowton, Montana to get some dog food. I bought a pallet of Purina lamb and rice, exclusive lamb and rice, and then I went and I had lunch at the Local Creek Cafe. I think that's what they call it, Local Creek. And when I was in there, Janie Glennie and Janie Carlson, I'm sorry. No, it used to be Janie. Maybe it's Janie Glennie, Janie Carlson. I can't remember what it is now. She and her husband split up. But they came in and they had a big crew and they were all sat at a table and they'd been working cattle somewhere. And I really enjoyed it because they all came in. They had hats on, the women, the men, everybody. Janie, she's the boss. She had her cowboy hat on. They were all in spurs. They were polite. They didn't make a big scene, but they really showed that they were cow people, and they were proud of it, and they did a good job. So I was glad to see them, and I talked to Janie, and I've known her forever, and I think they run a good outfit, so it was good to see that. And then, got my good little burger, didn't have to eat my own cooking, come home, and then the only other time I've been out of my front gate is I went to the grocery store and got groceries. So me and my dogs, my horses, my cows, and cats, we're all just happy right here. And I can be just as happy here as anywhere. But when I'm out on the road, I've learned to be happy there too. And I really enjoy flying. I enjoy getting to events. I enjoy those things. So I guess what you have to learn is to just be happy where you're at. And I think a lot of folks, here's the problem. A lot of folks are happy, but the other folks around them or something, they're either taken away from their happiness or things don't jive, and that's when you really got to learn how to get by those situations, not let other people's, maybe not their unhappiness, just where you don't match up so good. You got to figure out how to make that where you do match up so you can be happy and it doesn't mess you up. Many years ago when I was going to Sweden first time, and I hadn't been doing clinics very much or anything, and there was a lot of people around there and coming around, and they were all wanting something, and they were good folks, and I was really enjoying it. But there was a gal there that was a healer or something, and she was always coming around. She was nice and had a horse and stuff. And she told me that a lot of people are energy stealers, and some people are energy givers. I never really thought of that concept before. But she told me when you had an energy stealer, she said, you got to start learning how to read those because they'll just suck it out of you. She said, just close your hands. Just close your hands up so they can't steal your energy. And she's probably one of the tree huggers, they grab a tree for energy. But anyway, and then if you had good people around, open your hands up and take that energy in. Now, I don't know if that's whatever, but I have learned to read people. And when people are energy suckers, some people will take the life out of the party and suck the energy out of everybody, or a clinic, or a cow working, or whatever. Some people just suck it out of it and take all the fun and enjoyment and the quality out of it. So I'm real careful about not getting around those people too much. And if I do, I learn how to just shut them off somehow. Not punch them in the nose, I just close my hands. But I don't really have to close my hands, I close my mind. And that's very helpful. So anyway, quality of life, it's up to you. That's what I figured out. And whether you have money or don't, I'll tell you where a big problem is when you really, if you have a lot of debt. Boy, to me, now some people it doesn't bother, but to me, not having debt, not having to worry about paying for something down the road, oh boy, that makes my quality of life a lot better. Then I can enjoy myself, don't have to worry about making a bunch of money, and I can live how I want and enjoy my life without worrying it. So that's always been a thing of mine, is not have a whole bunch of bills to pay. And that seems to help me. And the people you're around, the things you decide to do. Now, I just can't fathom living in a big city or a small city. I just can't imagine living in a city. And I know a lot of people can't imagine living like I do here. But boy, we're 60 miles from town. And but we have the greatest grocery store right here in Rygate. She has everything you want. I went and got groceries today. Everything I needed and wanted is there, and it's good stuff. And then we have a little cafe that just opened up. We used to have a bar and a cafe, and then the owners blew themselves up in a trailer, and the bar shut down, and it was the restaurant and the bar, and so that shut down. So somebody rebuilt a little old cafe, and so now I've only been there once. I don't go there very often, but I took a fella, Eli Brown, when he came and got a dog. I took him there, and that's the first time I've been there. It was real nice, good food. And then there's a bar. I haven't been in it for a long time either, but we have a great little store, and she has such good stuff, and it's always fun to go in there. So I got everything I need in Rygate. Finally, I got to go to Billings tomorrow to pick up Tammy. She's flying back in, I see, and so we'll probably get some big groceries there that maybe Peggy doesn't have here at the store, but I'd rather buy here at the store, and then we'll come home and live our life. So that's the whole key. It's up to you. Quality life is, right here. We don't have a big fancy house. We have a wonderful house. We don't have big fancy cars, but they sure get us places, and that's all we need. We have lots of dogs, and so I think it's a good thing as I babble on here and ramble on. Quality of life is all about you. There's a great commercial, I think it's a Wrangler commercial actually, that about the Yates family, and somebody asked J.D. Yates in that commercial, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot, but said what's his best win that he's had, and he said the next one. And that's a real good way of looking at life. So what's your best job? Your next one. What's your best horse? Your next one. And that's a good way to look forward and appreciate. You got to appreciate what you have right now, but look forward and try to get something better coming up. And that's a great way to live life. I think people, I hear this all the time. I'd sure hate to be a young person today. And my grandfather said that, I'm sure, and probably his grandfather said that. And I look at that and how wrong that statement has been over the past years. Just think, when I think of my grandfather and his life when he was growing up, a young man, and then I think of my life and how much easier I had it. I don't know if I had it better, but I had it a lot easier. I mean, they were still working horses and doing everything horseback and with a team when he was a kid. And when I was a kid, we ended up with a mower and a rake, and then a swather, and now look at all this stuff that we have today that ranchers and farmers, they don't even have to work today. It's all so automatic and automated that there's not a lot of physical. You better create some physical just so you stay in shape. So excuse me, our quality of life just keeps getting better because things get easier. Now, I don't know where that's going to break. Maybe we'll get so many people that won't, but right here in Rygate, Montana, I can live like they did in the 1800s, right out here in this meadow and in this little log cabin and have a wood stove, and or I can get on the internet and live in the future. So I think we're living in the best of times right now, and if you're not, your quality of life isn't really, really good right now, then that's your fault. And you should try to do something about it. Unless there's some circumstances okay, so we went through cancer. My wife got cancer, and they said 5 years to live. Well, she said, no, that's not the way it's going to be. And she could have just given up and let the energy go away. But she went to it and figured it out, and we live every day now. We don't know. And I don't know, this morning I was on a colt, and he was kind of bucking across the pasture. My neighbor, when I talked to him a little later today, he said, oh, I saw your horse bucking a little bit. I could flip over and end it all. So you better enjoy it while it is. And I'm not saying that, if you have a circumstance, well, but most circumstances, if your quality of life isn't what you want it to be, well, do something about it. And I really think we're getting a time of we like to blame everybody else for everything, and if we don't feel like if our kids are too hyper or something, we give them some pills to settle them down. Or man, I think we got to get out of that deal and start getting back to life and taking some of the responsibility for ourselves and doing something about it. And I watch people that are unhappy and miserable, and they try to make everybody else unhappy and miserable, and I'm just not going to be a part of that. And I hope you aren't either. So if you're having some tough luck, well, get some help. And that's the whole thing is people love to help each other in a good society. So ask for some help, and don't get the energy stealers. Get those ones that you want to grab some energy from and get around them and get it out. And if you're having a bad day, change it. If you're having a bad week, change it. If you're having a bad life, change it. And I'm sure some people are going to say, well, that's easy for you to say. And it is. And I'm glad, because I'm not going to weaken, and I'm so proud of my wife for not giving up and weakening. And, there's challenges every day. And just deal with them and go on with it. And that'll make a quality of life that you learn from. And if you enjoy animals, enjoy nature, enjoy people, all those other things, as long as you don't have too many bills, you'll be all right. So hopefully that'll give you something to think about. And I'm not saying I got all the answers, but I want you to start thinking about them and hopefully improve your quality of life, your family's quality of life, your animal's life, and your the land you're on's life, quality of, well, I guess it is quality of life. The soil's alive, and that makes for a real good quality of life for everybody. There's I mentioned in a deal a while ago, I don't know if I wrote it or talked about it or whatever, but there's been two people that I've seen that really, really seemed at peace to me and really confident in life and fine. And I said they're Tom and Sally, and nobody bid on it to ask who it was, but it was two horse people, Tom Dorrance and Sally Swift. And I've never learned much except from videos and things from Tom as far as horsemanship, but boy, spending the little bit of time I did with him, I felt like I was his best friend, and I think that's what he did to everybody. And there were some people around him a lot, and they were his best friends, but he would make you feel so good. And he had such a confidence in what he did, but he didn't have this arrogant confidence. And it was just made me just feel so good. And when you looked at him, he just was the most content man that I felt like I'd been around. And several years ago, come here, Red. Several years ago, I was at a NARA, North American for Riding Handicapped convention, doing a colt starting or something, and they had a whole bunch of people there, and Sally Swift was there. And I wasn't a follower. I read some of her books, and I liked the ideas of how to keep soft. Imagine you have a bird in your hands, or cookies, and I used a lot of that when I was doing a lot of horsemanship clinics. And then she wanted to see me after she did the colt starting deal. She asked if she could see me and visit me, and she had me come up in this room up above the arena, and we were watching people work, and just Sally Swift and I stayed in this room for about an hour and just visited. And she liked the way I rode, and she had me some ideas on things I could do to improve my posture riding. But she was just, it was the same look and the same feel I got visiting with Tom Dorrance. And I've watched the whole clinic thing with the horse world, and these folks that were doing they're mean to people, and they're not nice sometimes, and they're kind of arrogant, and they've got these $1 million rigs, and they pull in and they're selling all this stuff, and they're talking all about this stuff, but I never see that content look as Tom Dorrance and Sally Swift. And they didn't, I don't think they'd ever sold anybody a thing. Well, Sally Swift might have, but a book or something. And Tom, he might have sold a book. But they were so content with where they were at. And I think that's way more important than the horsemanship stuff they showed out there. And they had this confidence, and they really knew and believed in what they knew. And I think that's That's just something in that. But they didn't have to feel bad about anything they'd done with people. And I think a lot of folks that have these places where people watch them or want to be around them, and then they're mean to them or rude to them or lose patience with them, and then their conscience, they can't sleep as good at night. So think about that. Hope you have a good week.